If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. All right, football fans, buckle up, because this one has the potential to shake up the AFC North in a big way. Over the past 24 hours, the NFL rumor mill has gone absolutely haywire, with one particular name lighting up social media feeds, radio call-ins, and fan forums everywhere: Garrett Wilson. That's right, the New York Jets' young superstar wide receiver, the same guy who's been carrying that franchise's passing game on his back for 3 straight seasons, is now being mentioned as a potential trade target for the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, you heard that right. The Browns, a team desperate for some juice on offense, might be looking to make a blockbuster move that could totally redefine their passing attack and, honestly, their entire offensive identity. And let's be real, if you've watched Cleveland's offense this year, you know exactly why this rumor has fans foaming at the mouth. The Browns' passing game has been flat-out hard to watch this season. There's no other way to put it. The numbers don't just look bad, they're embarrassing for a team with playoff aspirations. Cleveland ranks near the bottom in nearly every passing category that matters. Third fewest passing yards per game at just 178.3, second fewest passing touchdowns with a meager 5, and third lowest completion percentage sitting at a woeful 58.8%. You don't need to be a stats junkie to understand what those numbers mean. They spell dysfunction. This isn't the kind of production you expect from a team trying to compete in a division stacked with offensive firepower like Cincinnati and Baltimore. The receiving core has simply not lived up to expectations, and the passing attack has been suffocating under the weight of inconsistency and predictable play calling. And now, just when it seemed like fans were ready to give up on the idea of this offense being fixed this season, the Garrett Wilson rumor drops like a bombshell. Imagine for a second what that could look like. Garrett Wilson, back in Ohio, wearing brown and orange, catching passes at Cleveland Browns Stadium with the Dawg Pound roaring behind him. That's the kind of move that gets an entire city buzzing. It's poetic, too. Wilson, a former Ohio State Buckeye who made a name for himself in Columbus as one of the most electrifying receivers in college football, could be coming home to try and rescue a passing attack that's been stuck in the mud. It sounds almost too good to be true, but that hasn't stopped Browns fans from dreaming. Now, from the Jets' perspective, this rumor might not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Let's be honest, their situation isn't much better. The Jets' offense has been, well, a mess. They've dealt with quarterback instability for what feels like a decade, and even though Wilson has done everything humanly possible to produce despite that, it seems like his patience might finally be wearing thin. Reports have suggested he's frustrated with the direction of the organization and tired of being the lone bright spot in an otherwise stagnant offense. When a player that talented starts to get frustrated, things can spiral quickly. And that's when trade talks start to get real. Garrett Wilson's production speaks for itself. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons in his first 3 years in the league, all while catching passes from a carousel of quarterbacks that would make even the most optimistic Jets fan cringe. He's proven that he's not just good, he's elite. He's one of those guys who can turn a 5-yard slant into a 50-yard touchdown. He runs crisp routes, has incredible hands, and brings the kind of competitiveness that can ignite an entire locker room. For a team like the Browns, who have been missing that alpha presence in the wide receiver room, Wilson would instantly become their number 1 guy, no questions asked. The question now becomes, would Andrew Berry, the Browns general manager known for being one of the most aggressive deal-makers in the league, actually pull the trigger on something like this? Berry's track record suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves if he believes it'll give his team a real shot to contend. He's taken calculated risks before, and this would definitely qualify as another one. The Browns have been stuck in this awkward middle ground, good enough to compete for a playoff spot, but not quite good enough to be taken seriously as a contender. A trade for Garrett Wilson could change that overnight. It would give whoever's under center, whether that's Deshaun Watson or a future quarterback, a legitimate, top-tier weapon who can win against any cornerback in the league. Of course, every big move comes down to cost. What would the Jets want in return for a player like Wilson? That's where things get interesting. We've seen some notable wide receiver trades recently that might set the market. Earlier this year, George Pickens was shipped from Pittsburgh to Dallas for a 2026 third-round pick and a 2027 fifth-rounder. That deal has worked wonders for the Cowboys, giving Dak Prescott another reliable weapon and revitalizing their offense. Then there was the DK Metcalf trade. Seattle sent him to Pittsburgh for a 2025 second-round pick and a late-round swap. Those deals set a precedent, and if the Jets were willing to move Wilson for a similar package, the Browns could actually swing this without giving up either of their first-round picks. That's huge. That means Cleveland could land a true number one receiver while still keeping enough draft capital to address other pressing needs, like bolstering the offensive line or adding depth to the secondary. Let's not forget the emotional component here, either. Bringing Garrett Wilson back to Ohio wouldn't just be a football move, it would be a statement. It would signal that the Browns are serious about competing right now, that they're done waiting for things to click and ready to make something happen. It would energize the fan base, which, let's face it, could use some good news after watching this offense sputter week after week. There's something special about homegrown stars returning to their roots, and for Wilson, playing in front of Ohio fans again could reignite that fire even more. You can already picture the scene. A crisp fall afternoon, Wilson lining up on the outside, the crowd chanting OHIO, and him torching a defender for a touchdown. That's the kind of story that writes itself. Of course, until something actually happens, all of this is speculation. The NFL rumor machine is always churning, and for every blockbuster that actually goes down, there are a dozen that fade away as nothing more than wishful thinking. But this one feels different. The need is real, the fit is perfect, and the timing makes sense. The Browns are in that window where they have to capitalize on their talent before contracts and cap hits start to pile up. And for the Jets, if they truly believe they're heading toward another rebuild, moving a disgruntled star for valuable draft picks could be their way of resetting the clock. If you're a Browns fan, you can't help but get excited about this possibility. Imagine a receiving core with Garrett Wilson leading the charge, Amari Cooper working the intermediate routes, and Elijah Moore, another former Jet, stretching the field. Suddenly, this goes from being one of the weakest groups in the NFL to one of the most dangerous. Defenses would have to pick their poison, and for once, Cleveland might have an offense capable of keeping pace with the heavy hitters in the AFC. Add in a solid running game when Nick Chubb returns fully healthy, and you've got a balanced attack that could make real noise in January. But if there's one thing we've learned about the NFL, it's that patience doesn't always pay off. Windows close quickly, and front offices that hesitate often get left behind. The Browns have a chance to make a move that could define the next 5 years of their franchise. Whether they seize it or not is anyone's guess. The whispers are growing louder, the speculation is heating up, and all eyes are now on Andrew Berry and the Cleveland front office. Could this be the move that finally changes everything? Only time will tell. For now, fans can only dream. Dream of seeing Garrett Wilson back in Ohio, making highlight reel catches, turning third and longs into first downs, and helping the Browns finally break free from offensive mediocrity. Dream of an offense that strikes fear into opponents instead of frustration into fans. Dream of Sundays where the passing game doesn't just survive, but thrives. Because if this rumor becomes reality, that dream could turn into one of the most thrilling chapters in Cleveland Browns history. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Something is brewing in Cleveland, and it's not just the icy wind coming off Lake Erie. Over the past few days, whispers inside the Browns organization have turned into a full-blown storm, and now it looks like head coach Kevin Stefanski has taken a drastic step to get control of his locker room. Reports, unofficial, but coming from sources close to the team, suggest that a serious conflict erupted between two of the biggest figures in the Cleveland Browns franchise, defensive powerhouse Myles Garrett and quarterback Deshaun Watson. And from what insiders are hinting at, this wasn't just a small disagreement. This was an eruption that left players stunned, coaches scrambling, and management forced to act before things got completely out of hand. It all started after the Browns' latest disappointing showing on the field. The frustration has been boiling for weeks. Watson's inconsistency under center, the offensive struggles, and a defense that's been left hanging out to dry too often. Myles Garrett, known for his fiery competitiveness and intense leadership style, reportedly confronted Watson during a team meeting that was supposed to be about accountability. But instead of being a constructive session, it turned into something far more explosive. Sources inside the locker room say Garrett openly questioned Watson's commitment, his preparation, and even his toughness, pointing to moments where the QB appeared hesitant to push through pain or take risks when the game was on the line. Deshaun Watson didn't take kindly to that. The former franchise savior, brought in on a historic, fully guaranteed contract, wasn't about to sit there and let someone question his dedication in front of his teammates. Witnesses say he fired back, calling Garrett out for crossing a line, saying that as a defensive player, he doesn't understand the pressure or the physical toll a quarterback deals with every week. Words got heated. Voices rose. And according to at least one player who spoke under anonymity, Stefanski himself had to step in to separate the two before things got physical. The tension was so thick that some players reportedly walked out of the room in silence, unsure of what they had just witnessed. What's fascinating and troubling is that this isn't the first time the Browns' locker room has faced internal fractures since Watson's arrival. Behind the scenes, there have been rumblings that some veterans on defense resent the way the organization has handled the quarterback situation. Watson's massive contract, his inconsistent availability, and his performance that hasn't lived up to the billing have all created an undercurrent of frustration. Meanwhile, the defense, led by Garrett, has carried the team week after week, often watching the offense stall or collapse in key moments. It's the classic dynamic that kills NFL teams. One side of the ball feeling like they're giving everything while the other side gets the glory and the excuses. Stefanski, who has always prided himself on maintaining calm and professionalism, has reportedly reached his breaking point. Sources familiar with the situation claim that after this latest blow-up, he made a decision that has shocked even some members of the front office. In a closed-door meeting with team leadership, Stefanski supposedly announced that no player, not even a star, would be immune from discipline. And here's the wild part. It's being said that he's considering benching Deshaun Watson for at least one game, citing team chemistry and focus as the main reason. Can you imagine that? Benching a $230 million quarterback to send a message? That would be unprecedented, not just in Cleveland, but across the NFL. Of course, Stefanski knows that any such move would come with massive consequences. The Browns' ownership invested everything, money, reputation, and future draft capital, into acquiring Watson. Sitting him would be an open admission that things are not working, that the locker room dynamic has completely fractured. But Stefanski is in survival mode. His job is on the line, and from what's being whispered around Berea, he's determined to reassert his authority before this season spirals beyond repair. Some say he's already spoken directly with Garrett, urging him to rein in his emotions and refocus on leading the defense. Others say he's had private talks with Watson, emphasizing that respect must be mutual and that no player, regardless of salary or status, can afford to alienate teammates in a sport that depends so much on unity. The vibe around the team facility reportedly changed overnight. Practices have been tense. Players are walking on eggshells, unsure of what the next move will be. Some veterans have taken to social media with cryptic posts about loyalty, trust, and staying true to the game, which only fueled speculation that the team is divided. One insider even mentioned that a few members of the coaching staff have been lobbying Stefanski to calm things down, to avoid making any decision that could blow the season apart. But the coach, usually so measured, seems ready to shake things up. There's also talk that some members of the front office are quietly siding with Garrett. They see him as the emotional core of the franchise, the homegrown star who's given everything to the city. Watson, on the other hand, still feels like an outsider to some within the building. A player brought in with sky-high expectations but burdened by controversy and an uneven performance record. That cultural divide between the guys who came up through the organization and the superstar who was brought in as a supposed savior may be the real root of the problem. You can't buy chemistry, no matter how much you pay. What makes all of this even juicier is how the fans are reacting. Cleveland's fan base is one of the most passionate and most frustrated in all of sports. They've waited decades for stability, for a real shot at a championship, and they thought Watson was supposed to be that missing piece. Now, to hear that there might be infighting between their biggest stars, that's the last thing anyone wanted. Social media is buzzing with theories, fans taking sides, some saying Garrett is right to hold people accountable, others arguing that Watson deserves respect as the quarterback trying to lead. It's chaos, and the Browns' PR team is in overdrive trying to keep the narrative from exploding completely. Meanwhile, league insiders are watching closely. If Stefanski really does bench Watson, even for a single game, it could send shockwaves through the entire NFL. Other players around the league might look at that and think, if a guaranteed contract can't protect a quarterback from being benched, then what does? It could redefine how teams handle star players who aren't meshing with the locker room. On the flip side, if Stefanski backs down, if he lets this incident slide, then it could signal weakness, and that might be just as damaging. The Browns are walking a tightrope, and every step feels like it could be the one that breaks the wire. The franchise has fought too long to rebuild its credibility, to shed that old reputation of dysfunction and chaos. But here we are again, staring at headlines about internal fights, leadership crises, and possible benchings. It's the same old Cleveland story, but with higher stakes and bigger personalities. The only question now is, can Stefanski really pull this team back together, or is this the beginning of another Browns implosion? Players are reportedly set for a team-only meeting in the coming days, something Garrett himself supposedly pushed for. He wants to clear the air, but sources close to the situation warn that it could go either way. If handled right, it could heal the rift and reignite the team's focus. If handled poorly, it could lead to more division, more resentment, and possibly even trade rumors. Because yes, believe it or not, there's already quiet talk about whether one of these stars could be on the move if things don't improve. No one knows exactly what Stefanski will do next, but one thing is clear: he's tired of the drama. He wants his team to play football, not politics. Yet in today's NFL, where egos, contracts, and expectations collide every Sunday, managing personalities can be harder than managing plays. The Browns' season now hangs in the balance, not because of talent, not because of injuries, but because of a clash between two alphas who both believe they're the face of the franchise. And that's the irony of it all. For a team that dreamed of glory, the biggest battle isn't on the field, it's in the locker room. Stefanski's next move could define not just his career, but the entire direction of the Cleveland Browns for years to come. If he truly follows through with this rumored decision, it'll either be the boldest act of leadership the city has seen in decades, or the final spark that burns the whole thing down. Either way, the eyes of the NFL are on Cleveland, waiting to see if this team can turn the chaos into unity, or if the Browns, once again, become their own worst enemy. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!